Today, we're going to jump forward to a hypothetical crisis in 2026, one that, on paper, should have brought China to its knees. But instead, it uncovers this hidden energy strategy that is so powerful, it actually flips a massive vulnerability into a global advantage. It's a fascinating story.
Okay, so picture this. It's 2026. The world is tense, and it's because Washington has just launched surprise operations against the governments in Venezuela and Iran, both huge players in the oil game. Iran's response is immediate and dramatic. They shut down the Strait of Hormuz, which is one of the most important shipping lanes for oil in the entire world. And just like that, the price of everything, fuel, food, you name it, it all starts to surge. Now, you'd think this would be an absolute catastrophe for China. I mean, they import more oil than anyone else on the planet. But here's the thing. Beijing isn't panicking, not at all. And the story of why they're so calm reveals this incredible decade-long plan. So to really get a grip on China's strategy, we first have to understand just how incredibly vulnerable they should be. So here's how it all goes down. Washington makes a move on Venezuela. Then it joins Israel for a strike on Iran. And Iran's countermove? A full blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. This sends immediate shockwaves through the whole global economy. 20%. Get this. 20% of the world's entire oil consumption flows through that one single choke point every year. So shutting it down, it's like clamping a main artery of the world's economy. And this chart really just lays it all out. Over half of China's imported oil comes right through that now blocked strait. You add in the supply they get from Iran and Venezuela, and what you have is a crisis that should be absolutely crippling to their giant industrial economy. So, with its main energy lifeline basically severed, you'd expect total chaos in Beijing, right? But that is not what we see, not even close. You know, Iran was probably hoping that China, as a powerful ally, would jump in to help. But China just didn't. They made some minor diplomatic noises, but mostly acted like this huge crisis was just some distant problem they could easily manage.
And this was the big question on every analyst's mind. How is this possible? The answer shows that China wasn't caught off guard at all. In fact, you could say they've been preparing for this exact scenario for years.
All right, so let's get into the first layer of China's defense. Think of it as a massive Great Wall of oil that they have been patiently building for more than a decade. Way back in 2012, China started this enormous project, building a strategic petroleum reserve. For over a decade, day in and day out, they bought more oil than they used. They even cleverly used Western sanctions on Russia as a golden opportunity to negotiate super cheap prices and fill up their reserves even faster. 120 days. That's how long China could power its entire economy without importing a single new drop of oil. That's a 4-month safety net that just insulates them from the price shock and, frankly, it dwarfs the reserves of a lot of Western countries. But here's the crucial thing to understand. This massive stockpile, it's just a shield. It's a defensive play. The real secret weapon is actually hidden in the way China has structured its entire energy system. Okay, this next part is really interesting because it's all about how China's seemingly old-fashioned, almost backward approach to its energy mix turned out to be a massive strategic advantage. So, most Western economies followed this kind of path, right? We started with coal, then we shifted our entire industrial base to become dependent on oil and gas, and now we're slowly and kind of painfully trying to move to renewables to get our energy independence back. But here's the thing. China never really made that big second step. While countries like Italy and Germany became 60 to 75% reliant on oil and gas, China just stuck with coal. It still powers 60% of their economy. So in a way, they're kind of leapfrogging directly from phase 1, the coal phase, to phase 3, renewables. And when I say leap, I mean a staggering leap. In 2024 alone, China was responsible for almost 80% of the entire planet's growth in renewable energy. They're not just taking part in the transition, they are driving the whole thing. And that brings us to the final brilliant piece of the puzzle. This is where the whole strategy pivots from being just defensive to being incredibly offensive. Wait a second. We've just established that China doesn't really run its economy on oil. It runs on coal and renewables. So this creates a huge contradiction, doesn't it?
Seriously, why would you go through all the trouble of importing and stockpiling millions of barrels of a resource that you're actively trying to design your economy not to depend on? It doesn't seem to make sense.
And here's the genius move. It's like a kind of economic jujitsu. They don't use most of that imported crude oil for their own energy. No, they use it as a raw material for a hugely profitable export business. They refine it into high-value stuff, plastics, specialized fuels, all of it, and sell it to the world. They've literally turned a potential weakness into a massive profit center.
So by just shrugging off this crisis, China is set up to come out of it even stronger. Its economic rivals in the region get weaker, its own influence grows, and the US starts to look like a less reliable partner on the world stage. All of this makes China look like a much more stable and attractive place for foreign investment.
And that, right there, is the final, huge question this whole scenario leaves us with. China has masterfully built this image of being a calculated, stable power. But all of that could be thrown away with a single military decision, which just goes to show how deeply interconnected energy, economics, and global power really are.